I didn't know I was the villain until I saw the view count climbing past 2 million. The video showed me screaming on my parents' porch, stripped of context and edited for maximum hate. The comments cheered as my sister kicked me out of the house I was secretly keeping afloat. They saw a leech getting what she deserved. I saw the third take of a scene Brooke had rehearsed while I was at work. The boxes looked smaller in the trunk of my sedan than they did stacked in the hallway of the apartment I could no longer afford. There were only 6 of them. 6 boxes to hold the last 5 years of my life. I stood in the driveway of the house in Maple Glen, staring at the beige vinyl siding that I had sworn, at 18, I would never look at with a sense of permanency again. But here I was, 32 years old, single, laid off, and holding the keys to a kingdom I had outgrown a decade ago. The wind bit at my cheeks, carrying the scent of damp leaves and suburban stagnation. I took a breath that rattled in my chest. This was not a surrender. I told myself, this was a tactical retreat, a pit stop. I was not moving home. I was utilizing a gap in my lease history to stabilize my finances. The distinction mattered. It was the only thing keeping my spine straight as I hauled the first box out of the back seat. My mother, Dana, opened the front door before I reached the porch steps. She was wearing a floral blouse that looked too cheerful for a Tuesday afternoon. Her hair sprayed into an immobile helmet of blonde. "Ellie," she said, her voice pitched high, vibrating with an anxiety she tried to pass off as enthusiasm. "You are here early. We thought you would be here for dinner." I set the box down on the concrete, refusing to let her rush me. I wanted to get here before the sun went down. "Mom, I have to log into the portal for the temp agency by 6. Right. The job," she said, her eyes darting over my shoulder to the empty street, as if checking for witnesses. "Well, come in. Don't leave your things out there. It looks cluttered." I carried the box inside, the familiar smell of lemon polish and potpourri hitting me like a physical wall. The house had not changed. The same landscape paintings hung in the hallway. The same runner rug stretched toward the kitchen. It was preserved in amber. A museum of a life I had exited. My father, Mark, was in the living room, sitting in his recliner with the television volume turned low. He looked up, his face gray and slack, older than I remembered from Christmas. "Hey, kid," he said, not getting up. "Good to see you." "Hi, Dad," I said. I did not hug them. We were not that kind of family. Not anymore. Instead, I walked to the kitchen island where I had prepared the envelope. I placed it on the granite countertop with a sharp slap. $600. I said, "Cash. That covers the first month. I will pay for my own groceries, and I will contribute a third of the utilities. I am sleeping in the guest room, not my old room, because I need space for my desk, and I will be out by November 1st. Dana blinked, her smile faltering. "Oh, Ellie, you do not have to be so formal. You are our daughter. I am an adult." "Mom," I said, keeping my voice even, "I am not a guest, and I am not a charity case. This is a sublet agreement between family members. If we do not treat it like a business transaction, it is going to get messy. I want boundaries." Mark grunted from the other room. "Take the money." "Dana, she wants to pay. Let her pay." Dana sighed, picking up the envelope as if it were heavy. "Fine, if it makes you feel better. But really, we just want you to get back on your feet. You look tired. Honey, your skin looks terrible." "Thanks," I said, picking up my box again. "I'm going to unpack." I was halfway up the stairs when the door to the master bedroom opened, and Brooke stepped out. My sister was 24, but she looked simultaneously 12 and 40. She was wearing a matching loungewear set in a soft oatmeal color that I knew cost more than my car payment. Her phone was already in her hand, the camera lens pointing vaguely in my direction, though she held it casually against her chest. "Welcome home, loser," she said, but there was no bite in it. Her voice was syrupy, smooth. She flashed a smile that showed all her teeth, which had been whitened to a blinding ceramic brightness. "Hi, Brooke," I said, continuing to climb. She fell in step behind me, following me into the guest room. I set the box on the bed, a twin mattress that had been mine in middle school, and turned to face her. "So," she said, leaning against the doorframe, posing even when no one was watching. "Mom said the breakup was brutal. Did he cheat?" "I am not talking about it." I said. "Come on," she said, stepping into the room. "Content is healing. Elle, I have been thinking, since you are going to be here, we could do a whole series. Rebuilding Ellie. The glow up after the blow up. People eat that stuff up. I could help you rebrand." I stared at her. "Rebrand? I am an administrative coordinator." "Brooke, I do not have a brand. I have a resume. Everyone has a brand," she said, rolling her eyes. "Yours is just tragic right now. But we can fix it. I have 50,000 followers now. You know, if I tag you, we could get you some sponsorships, maybe some skincare. Get rid of those bags under your eyes." I felt a headache blooming behind my temples. "No, absolutely not. I do not want to be on your Instagram. I do not want to be on your TikTok. I value my privacy. I am here to work, save money, and leave. Please do not point that phone at me." She looked at her phone, then back at me, her expression unreadable. "You are so serious. It is just for fun." "God, you act like you are in witness protection. I just want peace." "Brooke," she lingered for a moment longer, her gaze sweeping over my battered cardboard boxes, my worn-out sneakers, my messy bun. There was a flicker in her eyes that I could not place. It wasn't pity. It looked like calculation. "Fine," she said, pushing off the doorframe. "Be boring. But when you get lonely, you know where to find me. I will be in the studio making actual money." She turned and left, but she didn't close the door. I walked over and shut it firmly, turning the lock. It was a flimsy privacy lock, the kind you could pop with a paperclip, but it was all I had. I sat down on the bed and put my head in my hands. November 1st. I whispered to the empty room. Just make it to November 1st. My new reality was beige. Beige walls in my parents' house, and beige partitions at Hawthorne Ridge Solutions, the medical billing firm where I had secured a 3-month contract. It was data entry and reconciliation, the kind of work that required zero emotional investment but absolute precision. I liked it. It was quiet. On my 3rd day, I was sitting in the break room, staring at a Tupperware container of pasta salad, when a woman named Sarah sat down opposite me. She was in her 50s, wearing a cardigan that had seen better decades, and she had the tired, knowing eyes of someone who had survived 10 rounds of corporate layoffs. "You are the new temp, right?" she asked, opening a diet soda. "Yes," I said. "Ellie," Sarah nodded. "Nice to meet you. Just a heads up. Honey, keep your head down. Management is on a warpath this quarter. They are looking for reasons to trim the fat. I am just a contractor." I said, "I do not think I count as fat yet." She laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "Oh, you would be surprised. They are obsessed with image right now. We had a guy last month. Good worker. Really fast with the coding. They let him go because someone found a video of him yelling at a parking attendant from 3 years ago. Online reputation check. It is a real thing." A cold prickle of unease ran down my back. "They check your social media?" "They check everything," she said. "They want squeaky clean. We handle patient data. They say it is about liability, but mostly they just do not want the headache. So if you have a wild side, keep it locked down. I do not have a wild side." I said, thinking of my empty Friday nights and my library card. "I am pretty boring." "Good," Sarah said, taking a sip of her soda. "Boring pays the rent." I went back to my desk, but the conversation stuck with me. I spent the afternoon double-checking my privacy settings on Facebook, which I hadn't updated since college, and ensuring my LinkedIn was professional. I was a ghost online. I liked it that way. I had nothing to hide, but I also had nothing I wanted to show. When I got home that evening, the house was quiet. Mark's car was in the driveway, but Dana's was gone. I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water and stopped. On the counter, Sitting right next to the coffee maker was my gray hoodie. I stared at it. It was my favorite hoodie, the one from my university days, worn soft at the elbows. I had unpacked it 2 days ago and folded it into the top drawer of the dresser in the guest room. I was certain of it. I picked it up. It smelled like fabric softener, but also faintly of Brooke's perfume, something sugary and cloying. "Mom?" I called out. Mark shuffled in from the living room, holding a newspaper. "Your mother is at yoga. What is it?" "My hoodie," I said, holding it up. "It was in my room. Now it is in the kitchen." Mark shrugged. "Maybe you left it down here." "I did not leave it down here." "Dad, I haven't worn it yet. It was in my drawer." "You are forgetting things," he said. Turning back to the living room. "Stress does that. You are under a lot of stress. Ellie, just put it away." I stood there, gripping the fabric. I knew I hadn't left it there. I was meticulous. My chaos was internal. My physical space was always ordered. It was a survival mechanism. I walked upstairs, the hoodie bunched in my fist. When I entered my room, I stopped again. The framed photo of me and my best friend, Marin, from a road trip to the Grand Canyon was gone from the nightstand. I dropped the hoodie and fell to my knees, checking under the bed. Nothing. I checked the drawers. Nothing. Panic, cold and irrational, clawed at my throat. I wasn't losing my mind. I knew where I put things. I marched down the hall to Brooke's room. The door was closed, and I could hear the muffled sound of her talking. The cadence rhythmic and performative. She was filming. I knocked. "Brooke." The talking stopped. A moment later, the door opened. Brooke stood there, fully made up, a ring light glowing behind her like a halo. "What?" she snapped. "I am in the middle of a take." "Where is my picture?" I asked. "The one of me and Marin." She blinked, her expression perfectly blank. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Why would I want a picture of you and Marin? It was on my nightstand. Now it is gone. And my hoodie was in the kitchen." She laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Okay, Inspector Gadget. Maybe you misplaced it. You are kind of a mess lately." "I am not a mess," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Did you go in my room?" "No," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "I have better things to do. Maybe Mom moved it to clean. You know how she gets about dust." I stared at her, searching for the lie. Her face was a mask of bored innocence. "Stay out of my room." "Brooke," I said. She smirked. "You are so paranoid. It is actually kind of sad." She closed the door in my face. I stood in the hallway, listening to the click of the latch. I felt untethered, like the floor was tilting slightly to the left. I went back to my room and searched for another 10 minutes. I found the picture an hour later. It was in the downstairs bathroom, tucked behind a stack of towels. I held the frame in my hands, staring at the glass. I had not been in the downstairs bathroom since I arrived. I had not brought the picture downstairs. Someone was moving my life around. The baiting started on Saturday. I was in the kitchen, making toast. It was 10 in the morning. I was wearing pajamas, flannel pants and a t-shirt. I hadn't brushed my hair yet. Brooke walked in, fully dressed in yoga gear, her phone in her hand. She propped the phone up against the fruit bowl, the lens facing the counter where I was standing. "Good morning. Sunshine," she said, opening the fridge. "You look cozy." "I'm just having breakfast," I said, eyeing the phone. "Is that recording?" "No," she said, grabbing a bottle of kombucha. "I am just setting up for a day in the life. Do not flatter yourself." She leaned against the counter, blocking my path to the butter dish. "So, Mom says you are still paying rent. That is so weird. It is responsible," I said, reaching around her. "Excuse me." She didn't move. "I mean, do you think it makes you better than us? Paying your way? Like you are too good to accept help?" I stopped, my hand hovering near the butter. "It is not about being better, Brooke. It is about independence." "Independence," she scoffed. "You are 32 and living with your parents. That is not independence, Ellie. That is hitting rock bottom." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I breathed out slowly. "I am in transition. There is a difference." She laughed, and I noticed she shifted her body slightly, angling herself so her face was in the light, and my back was to the window, casting me in shadow. You know, she said, her voice dropping to a faux whisper, loud enough for the phone to pick up. I am just worried about you. You seem so unstable. The way you freaked out about that picture? It is not normal. I did not freak out, I said, keeping my voice level. I asked a question, and I found it in a place I didn't put it. You are screaming right now, she said. I looked at her. I was speaking in a monotone. I am not screaming. Brooke, you are aggressive, she continued, backing away as if I had lunged at her. You have so much rage. Is that why he dumped you? Because you are scary? The words hit me like a slap. My breakup was a wound that hadn't even begun to scab over. It was raw, weeping flesh. Stop it, I said. See? She said, glancing at the phone. You are doing it again. You are so hostile. I am just trying to talk to my sister. I looked at the phone, then at her. I realized then that she wasn't having a conversation. She was performing a scene, and I was the antagonist. I am not doing this, I said. I grabbed my toast, dry, and walked out of the kitchen. Run away, she called after me. That is what you always do. I went to my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking. I sat on the bed and ate my dry toast, feeling the crumbs stick in my throat. I could hear Dana downstairs. Mom, Brooke yelled. Ellie is being a psycho again. I waited for Dana to come up, to ask my side. She never did. 10 minutes later, I heard Dana's voice in the hall. She is just sensitive. Brooke, you know how she is. Just leave her be. I closed my eyes. Sensitive. It was the word they used to dismiss any reaction to their dysfunction. If I cried because they forgot my birthday, I was sensitive. If I got angry because they read my diary, I was sensitive. I spent the rest of the weekend in the library. The letter came on a Tuesday, mixed in with a stack of catalogs and bills. It was addressed to me, in an envelope from a bank I hadn't used in years. First National of Massachusetts. I frowned. Standing by the mailbox at the end of the driveway, I remembered that bank. My grandmother, Nana Rose, had taken me there when I was 16. She had helped me open a savings account with $500 she had saved from her pension. For a rainy day, Eleanor, she had said, a woman should always have money that only she knows about. I hadn't thought about that account in a decade. I assumed it had gone dormant, the fees eating away the balance until it closed itself. I tore open the envelope. It was a statement of activity. My eyes scanned the lines, and my breath caught. Withdrawal. $200. May 12th, 2018. Withdrawal. $350. August 4th, 2019. Withdrawal. $150. December 20th, 2020. The list went on. Small amounts, irregular intervals, but consistent. The account wasn't empty. It had been kept alive, just barely, with small deposits followed by withdrawals. I walked back to the house, the paper trembling in my hand. I found Mark in the garage, tinkering with a lawnmower that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. Dad, I said. He looked up, wiping grease on a rag. Yeah? I held out the letter. I got a statement for the account Nana opened for me, the one at First National. He froze. His eyes didn't look at the paper. They looked at the tool bench. Oh? I thought that closed years ago. It shows withdrawals. Dad, from 3 years ago, from last year. Someone has been accessing it. He laughed, a nervous, sputtering sound. That is impossible. Ellie, you are the only one on the account. Nana was the custodian until I turned 18. I said, did you guys ever take her name off? I do not know, he said, turning back to the mower. Probably just bank errors. You know how computers are. They merge accounts. They get numbers wrong. Dad, these are specific amounts. Withdrawal slips. I was living in Chicago in 2019. I didn't make a withdrawal in Maple Glen. It is a glitch. Ellie, he snapped, slamming a wrench down. Why do you always have to make a federal case out of everything? Just call them and close it. He wouldn't look at me. His shoulders were hunched, his neck red. I walked into the house and found Dana in the kitchen. "Mom," I said, "do you know anything about my old savings account?" Dana was chopping vegetables with a manic intensity. "No? Why would I? That is your business. Dad says it is a bank error," I said, watching her carefully. "But it looks like someone has been using it as a piggy bank." She stopped chopping. She didn't turn around. "Well, maybe you forgot. You forget things. Ellie, like your hoodie, like that picture. I did not forget withdrawing money in a state I didn't live in." "Mom, drop it," she whispered. "Just drop it. Ellie, we are under a lot of pressure right now. We do not need you digging up ancient history." "Pressure?" I asked. "What kind of pressure?" "Financial pressure," she hissed, spinning around. "The house needs repairs. The heating bill is astronomical. Your father's pension isn't what it used to be. We are trying to keep our heads above water. And you come in here waving a piece of paper about Grandma's money. It is selfish." I stepped back. "Selfish? I am asking about theft. Mom, it is not theft if it is family," she shouted. The silence that followed was deafening. She clamped her hand over her mouth, her eyes widening. I stared at her. "So you did take it." "I did not say that." She stammered. "I just meant families share. Families help each other." I turned and walked out. I went to my room and threw the letter into my desk drawer, locking it. My heart was hammering against my ribs. They had been stealing from me. Small amounts, maybe, but they had been accessing an account that was supposed to be mine. Nana's money. I felt a sudden, sickening clarity. They weren't just messy. They were desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. 2 days later, I was walking from my car to the front door when a voice called out, "Ellie, is that you?" I turned. It was Mrs. Gable, the neighbor from the townhouse complex across the street. She was walking a golden retriever. "Hi, Mrs. Gable," I said, forcing a smile. She walked over, her expression filled with a cloying sympathy. "I saw you moving in last week. I didn't want to intrude. Brooke told me you were going through something." My smile faltered. "Oh? What did she say?" Mrs. Gable lowered her voice, leaning in over the fence. "Just that you were having a hard time, mentally, that you needed to be watched. I just want you to know. Honey, there is no shame in getting help. My nephew had a breakdown last year, and he is doing wonders now." "A breakdown." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She told you I had a breakdown? She said you were fragile." Mrs. Gable said, patting my hand resting on the fence, "that we should just be gentle with you." I pulled my hand away. "I am fine. Mrs. Gable, I just lost my job. That is all." She nodded, but her eyes were skeptical. "Of course. Dear, whatever you say, you take care now." She walked away, pulling the dog. I stood there, watching her go. Brooke wasn't just making videos. She was seeding the ground. She was telling the neighbors, the community, that I was unstable. Why? It seemed like too much effort for simple pettiness. It felt strategic. I entered the house quietly. It was late, almost 11. The lights were off downstairs. I crept up the stairs, trying to avoid the squeaky board on the 3rd step. As I passed Brooke's room, I heard her voice. She wasn't using her camera voice. She was speaking low. Urgent. "No, I know." She said, "I know. But she is suspicious. She found the bank statement." I froze. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. "Yeah, well, we need more time," Brooke said. "If she leaves on her own, it won't hit the same. The engagement is too low on the subtle stuff. I need a blowout. I need her to look dangerous." Silence, then a laugh. "Don't worry, I know how to push her buttons. She's already cracking. By next week, I will have the clip, and then we can launch the GoFundMe. Yeah, bye." I stood there in the dark, my hands clenched into fists so tight my nails cut into my palms. It won't hit the same. Launch the GoFundMe. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This was a business plan. And I was the product. I went to my room and closed the door. I didn't turn on the light. I sat on the edge of the twin bed, staring at the line of light coming from under the door. They were going to frame me. They were going to destroy my reputation, my sanity, and my future, all to sell a sob story to the internet, and my parents knew. Dana's comment about financial pressure clicked into place. They needed money. Brooke had convinced them that ruining me was the way to get it. I looked at the lock on my door, the flimsy privacy lock. It felt like a joke. I needed to leave, but if I left now, like a thief in the night, they would spin it. She ran away. She's off her meds. Please donate to help us find her. I couldn't just leave. I had to dismantle the trap. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I opened the camera app. I pointed it at the door. Record. I whispered into the mic. My name is Ellie Parker. It is October 14th. I am sane. I am sober. And I am being hunted by my own family. I stopped the recording and uploaded it to a hidden cloud folder. The game had started. I just hadn't realized I was playing until now. The internet does not bleed, but it knows how to make you hemorrhage. I found the account on a Thursday, 3 days after I had overheard Brooke's phone call. I had created a burner account, a faceless profile with a stock photo of a sunset, just to monitor the digital perimeter of my life. I searched for Brooke's handle, expecting to find her usual curated feed of latte art and gym selfies. Instead, I found a link in her bio to a secondary page, The Real Brooke P. Bio, Unmasking the Toxic, Healing Journey, Reality Checks. There were only 4 posts, but they had already gathered a momentum that made my stomach turn. The first was a black and white clip of a suitcase standing in a hallway. My hallway. The caption read, "When boundaries are crossed and peace is stolen, toxic family narcissist leech." The second was a shaky video taken from the top of the stairs. Looking down at me walking into the kitchen, I was wearing my bathrobe, my hair messy from sleep. I looked disheveled. I looked defeated. The audio was just the heavy sound of my footsteps, amplified to sound lumbering, aggressive. Caption: She refuses to contribute. She refuses to heal. We try so hard, but some people just want to take. I sat at my desk at Hawthorne Ridge Solutions, my hand trembling over the mouse. Refuses to contribute. I had paid $600 cash. I had the receipt signed by my father in my wallet. I clicked on the comments. Kick her out. Sis. Protect your peace. Why do they always come back when they fail? They were talking about me. Strangers who had never met me, who knew nothing of my layoff or the envelope on the counter, were dissecting my character based on a 10-second clip of me walking to the refrigerator. I closed the browser tab, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I felt exposed, like the walls of the cubicle were made of glass. That evening, I decided to cut the infection out before it spread. I drove home practicing my tone. Calm, rational. If I got angry, I gave her content. If I cried, I gave her a victim narrative. I had to be a stone. I found Brooke in the living room, curled up on the sofa with a ring light set up on the coffee table. She was applying lip gloss, staring into her phone screen. "Brooke?" I said. She didn't look up. Her thumb tapped the screen. "Busy. I saw the new account," I said, keeping my voice low. "The one where you are posting videos of me." She paused, capping the lip gloss with a slow, deliberate twist. She finally looked at me, her expression bored. "Stalking me? That is creepy. Ellie, you are posting videos of me inside this house without my consent." I said, "You are lying in the captions. You said I do not contribute. You know I paid rent." Brooke laughed, a short, airy sound that lacked any real humor. "Oh my God. You are so obsessed with yourself. Not everything is about you. Those are generic vent posts. You filmed me walking into the kitchen." I said, "That is my bathrobe. That is my suitcase." She rolled her eyes. "You are paranoid. Seriously, it is an aesthetic. It is a mood board for dealing with difficult people, if you see yourself in it. Maybe that is your guilty conscience talking." I felt a flush of heat, the urge to scream rising in my throat. I swallowed it down. "Take them down. Brooke, I am asking you nicely. It is an invasion of privacy." She smirked. And in that moment, she looked exactly like the high school bully she had never really outgrown. "You are not interesting enough to be content." "Ellie," she said, "trust me. If I wanted to expose you, I would do something way better than a blurry video of your bathrobe. Now move. You are blocking my lighting." I stood there, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of the gaslighting. She was denying reality while I was looking right at it. I felt a sudden, sharp spike of shame. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe nobody could tell it was me. Maybe I was making a big deal out of nothing. That was how they worked. They made you doubt the evidence of your own eyes until you apologized for seeing it. I turned and walked away. As I climbed the stairs, I heard the soft click of a shutter. After that, I went into lockdown. My room became my bunker. I stopped eating in the kitchen. I bought protein bars and apples and kept them in a plastic bin under my bed. I stopped watching TV in the living room. I left the house at 7 in the morning and didn't return until after 6 in the evening. I communicated with my parents exclusively through text messages. I wanted a record. I wanted proof that I was a tenant, not a volatile daughter. To Dana. Tuesday, 8:15 a.m. Good morning. I noticed the milk is low. I will pick up a gallon on my way home. Also, here's a photo of the electric bill share I left on the counter. To Mark. Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Hi, Dad. Just letting you know I am home, going straight to my room to work on some applications. Let me know if you need help with the trash bins tomorrow. They rarely replied. When they did, it was single words. "K. Thanks. Fine." It felt ridiculous, treating my family like hostile landlords. But every time I walked down the hall, I felt the lens of a camera on me. I started dressing in the bathroom with the door locked. I checked the smoke detector in my room to make sure it wasn't a hidden camera. I knew I sounded crazy to myself, but the alternative, that I was being watched without knowing where or when, was worse. I documented everything. I started a spreadsheet on my laptop. October 18th. Brooke followed me to the laundry room, held phone at waist height, asked why I do not have friends anymore. October 20. Dana asked why I am so cold. I said I'm just tired. Brooke was in the doorway, smiling. October 21. Found my toothbrush in the trash can. Mark said it must have fallen. I was building a defense for a trial I hoped would never happen. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I stayed small, if I paid my way and left no footprint, they would get bored. I thought the lack of content would starve the beast. I was wrong. Silence just meant they had to write the script themselves. The Tuesday of the confrontation began like any other day. I went to work. I entered data. I ate my lunch in my car because the break room felt too exposed. I received a text from Dana at 3 in the afternoon. "Come home straight after work. We need to talk." My stomach dropped. The vague ominousness of it was designed to provoke anxiety. I waited 10 minutes before replying. "Is everything okay?" No response. I spent the rest of the afternoon staring at my screen, my productivity plummeting. Had they found the letter about the bank account? Had Brooke escalated? I pulled into the driveway at 5:30. The sun was already setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the lawn. The house looked normal. The porch light was on. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The first thing I saw was the boxes. My boxes. The same 6 boxes I had carried in weeks ago. They were stacked haphazardly by the door. Some of them open. My clothes spilling out onto the floor like guts. My laptop bag was thrown on top. My pillow was on the floor. The case dirty from the welcome mat. I froze. My keys still in my hand. Mom? Dad? Mark and Dana were sitting in the living room. They were not watching TV. They were sitting on the love seat, side by side, like a tribunal. Brooke was on the stairs. She was sitting on the 4th step. Her phone held vertically in her hand. The red light of a recording app was not visible. But I knew by the way she was framing the shot, ensuring she had a clear line of sight to the front door and the living room. "Ellie," Mark said. His voice was loud. Too loud. It sounded like he was projecting for a microphone. "What is going on?" I asked, gesturing to my things. "Why is my stuff by the door?" You need to leave, Mark said. Tonight? Right now. I stepped further into the room, my mind racing. What? Why? I paid rent through November. We had an agreement. We cannot have this kind of hostility in our house, Dana said. She was clutching a tissue, dabbing at eyes that were perfectly dry. I do not feel safe. Ellie, not after what you said to me. I stared at her. What I said to you? Mom, I haven't seen you since Sunday. I have been texting you. I have been at work. Don't lie, Mark shouted, standing up. He looked awkward, his movements stiff. You threatened her. Ellie, you cornered her in the kitchen this morning and you threatened her. I felt a wave of dizziness. This was a fabrication so complete, so detached from reality, that I couldn't find a foothold. I left for work at 7:30. I said, my voice steady, though my knees were shaking. Mom was still asleep. I didn't see her. I can show you my GPS history. I can show you my clock-in time. It doesn't matter, Dana wailed. I know what I heard. You said you were going to burn it all down. You are unstable. I looked at Brooke. She was zooming in. I could feel it. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the screen. This is a performance, I said, realizing it with a cold certainty. You are doing this for her. Don't you blame your sister, Mark yelled. Brooke has been nothing but supportive. She has been trying to protect us from you. I looked at my father. I saw the sweat on his upper lip. I saw the way his eyes darted to Brooke, checking for direction. He was afraid. He was terrified of the debt, of the secrets, of whatever financial hole they had dug, and he had decided that sacrificing me was the only way to fill it. I am not leaving, I said. I have tenant rights. You cannot just kick me out without notice. Oh, listen to her, Brooke called out from the stairs. Her voice was mocking, sharp. Tenant rights? You are a guest. Ellie, a guest who overstayed her welcome, a guest who scares her own mother. I turned to face her. Is this what you need? Brooke, a climax for your story? She stood up, walking down the steps. The phone held steady. You are pathetic, she said. Look at you, 32 years old, no husband, no career, no home. No wonder David left you. He probably got tired of waking up next to a psycho. It was a precise strike. She knew David was the one topic that could break me. She knew I blamed myself for the breakup. She was fishing for the scream. She wanted the tears. She wanted the clip where I lunged at her so she could caption it. POV, my sister attacks me. I dug my fingernails into my palms until the skin broke. I focused on the pain. I used it to anchor myself. I am not going to fight you. Brooke, I said. I looked directly into the lens of her phone. I am asking you to show me the proof that I threatened Mom. Show me the recording of that. Brooke hesitated. The request for evidence wasn't in the script. Just get out, Mark roared. Rushing forward, he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my bicep. I want you out of my house. He shoved me toward the door. I stumbled, tripping over one of my own boxes. Dad, stop, I said. I will leave. Just let me take my things. No time, he yelled. He opened the front door and started kicking the boxes out onto the porch. One of them split open, spilling books onto the damp concrete. Get out. He grabbed my shoulders and physically pushed me across the threshold. I stumbled out onto the porch, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. Stay away from us, Dana screamed from the living room. Mark slammed the door. I heard the deadbolt slide home. I stood there in the dark, surrounded by the wreckage of my belongings. The silence of the suburbs rushed back in. Heavy and indifferent. I didn't scream. I didn't pound on the door. I knew Brooke was probably filming through the peephole or the window. I picked up my books. I repacked the broken box. I carried everything to my car. Making 4 trips, I moved with a mechanical efficiency. I felt like I was floating outside of my body, watching a woman load a sedan in the dark. When the last box was in, I got into the driver's seat. I locked the doors. I sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I didn't look back at the house. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. The Motel 6 was 10 miles away. Near the highway exit. The room smelled of stale cigarette smoke and industrial cleaner. The carpet was sticky. I sat on the bed, staring at the television without turning it on. My phone lay on the nightstand, vibrating every few seconds. I was afraid to look at it. For an hour, I just breathed. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. It was the only thing I could control. Finally, I picked up the phone. I had 40 notifications, texts from friends asking if I was okay, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. I saw the video. Are you safe? You need help. Why would you do that to your parents? I opened Instagram. I didn't have to search for it. It was already trending on my Explore page. The thumbnail was my face, distorted in a grimace of pain as I tripped over the box. The title was in bold, red letters. My sister attacked my parents. We had to call the police. I pressed play. The video started with Brooke's face, looking tearful, whispering to the camera, "Guys, I am shaking. I didn't want to post this, but I am scared. She just snapped." Then the cut. It jumped to me standing in the living room. "Is this what you need, Brooke?" My voice was distorted, deepened to sound menacing. Cut to Mark yelling, "You threatened her! You cornered her!" Cut to me. The silence where I had asked for proof was gone. Instead, they had spliced in audio from somewhere else. Maybe a phone call I had made. Maybe something recorded through a door. "I am not leaving." It sounded like a threat. Cut to Brooke. "No wonder David left you. You are a psycho." Cut to me stepping toward her. In reality, I had taken one step to look at the lens. In the video, the camera jerked violently back, as if I had lunged. A sound effect had been added. A sharp, high-pitched screech. Cut to Mark pushing me out, but they had trimmed the start. It looked like I was refusing to leave, fighting him, and he was defending himself. The video ended with me outside, the door slamming. Text appeared on the screen. "She is gone, but we are terrified she will come back. Please pray for my family." I dropped the phone on the bed. It was a masterpiece of fiction. They had taken a woman being evicted illegally and turned her into a monster. I looked at the view count. 400,000 views. It had been up for 3 hours. I scrolled down to the comments. "She looks demonic. The way she stepped at the camera? Chills. Where is this? Someone find out where she is. I think I know that girl. Doesn't she work at Hawthorne Ridge?" "Yeah, that is Ellie Parker. I went to high school with her. Always been weird. Tagging Hawthorne Ridge Solutions. Do you guys employ people who abuse the elderly?" Doxing. They were doxing me. I felt the panic rise. A black tide choking me. My job. My contract. If Hawthorne Ridge saw this, and they would, I was dead. The online reputation warning from Sarah came rushing back. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the motel room seemed to be closing in. I stood up and paced. 3 steps to the window. 3 steps to the door. I grabbed my phone again. I needed to defend myself. I needed to comment. I needed to post the recordings I had made. I needed to scream that they were liars. I opened the comment box. My fingers hovered over the keys. "This is a lie. They stole my money." I stared at the words. If I posted that, I looked like I was spiraling. I looked exactly like the person they had painted me to be. The unstable daughter ranting online. I deleted the text. I needed an anchor. I needed someone who existed outside of the distorted reality Brooke had built. I dialed Marin. She answered on the first ring. "Ellie?" Oh my God. I saw it. I let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "It is edited. Marin, it is all edited." "I didn't touch them. I didn't threaten them. I know," Marin said, her voice hard and clear. "I know you. Ellie, I know you didn't do that. They kicked me out." I whispered, "I am at the Motel 6 off the turnpike. They threw my boxes on the porch." "Okay," Marin said. "Listen to me. Are you safe right now? Is the door locked?" "Yes." "Good. Now, listen carefully. Do not post anything. Do not comment. Do not go live. But they are lying. They are tagging my job." "I know," Marin said, "and if you reply right now, You pour gasoline on the fire. You are emotional. You are traumatized. You will say something they can twist. Brooke wants you to fight. She wants the engagement. Do not give it to her. Then what do? I asked. Tears finally spilling over. My life is burning down. Let it burn for tonight. Marin said, You cannot put it out with a cup of water. We need a fire hose. And to get that, we need a plan. She took a breath. First, you are going to email your boss. Tonight, preempt this. Tell them you are the victim of a targeted harassment campaign involving deepfake editing and family domestic disputes. Use those words. Targeted harassment. Deepfake. Okay, I said, grabbing a notepad from the nightstand. I wrote it down. Harassment. Deepfake. Second, Marin continued, You are going to save everything. Download that video before she deletes it. Screenshot every comment that mentions your workplace. Screenshot the doxing. We are building a binder. Ellie, a binder? I repeated. And third, she said, her voice softening. You are not going back there. Not for your mail. Not for anything. You are done with them. I am alone. Marin, I whispered. You are not alone, she said fiercely. I am 2 hours away. I am getting in the car tomorrow morning. I will help you find a short-term rental. We will find a lawyer. A lawyer? I do not have money for a lawyer. We will find one, she said. This isn't drama anymore. Ellie, this is defamation. This is illegal eviction. We are going to bury them, but you have to survive tonight. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. Survive tonight. Okay, I said. Get off the internet. Ellie, watch a movie. Take a shower. Do not look at the comments. Promise me. I promise. I hung up. I walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower. The water was lukewarm, but I stood under it until my skin turned pink. I scrubbed myself, trying to wash off the feeling of Mark's hands on my shoulders, the feeling of Brooke's lens on my face. When I got out, I sat at the small desk in the corner. I opened my laptop. I didn't look at Instagram. I opened a blank email addressed to my manager at Hawthorne Ridge. Subject, urgent, personal security matter regarding online harassment. I began to type. My hands were still shaking, but the words came out clear. I was an administrative coordinator. I knew how to write a report. I wrote for an hour. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. I named it Evidence. I downloaded the video. I watched it one more time, not as a victim, but as a witness. I saw the jump cuts. I saw the shadow of Brooke smiling before she switched to her scared face. I saw the way Mark looked at the camera before he pushed me. It wasn't just a hit piece. It was a confession. They had documented their own cruelty. They thought they controlled the edit, but they had given me the raw footage of their abuse. I closed the laptop. I turned off the light. I lay in the dark, listening to the trucks rumble by on the highway. I wasn't the villain, and I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the plaintiff, and court was now in session. The cursor blinked on the white screen of my laptop, a rhythmic pulse that felt synchronized with the throbbing vein in my temple. It was 7 a.m. I had not slept. The Motel 6 room was bathed in the gray, flat light of an overcast dawn, making the stained carpet look even more desolate. I read the draft of the email to my manager for the 10th time. Subject, urgent, personal security matter regarding online harassment. Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to inform you of a personal security situation that may result in unsolicited contact directed at Hawthorne Ridge Solutions. I have been the victim of a targeted harassment campaign involving edited media and false allegations regarding a family dispute. I am currently working with legal counsel and law enforcement to resolve this matter. Please be assured that this personal situation does not reflect my professional conduct or stability. I am fully capable of performing my duties. However, if the company receives any communications regarding me, I ask that you forward them to HR and allow me to provide the necessary context and documentation. I am committed to my role and appreciate your understanding. Sincerely, Ellie Parker. I pressed send. The swoosh sound of the email departing felt like I had just launched a flare from a sinking ship. I didn't know if it would save me or just alert the sharks to exactly where I was bleeding. A knock at the door made me jump, my heart hammering against my ribs. I grabbed my phone, ready to dial 911. Before I remembered, "It's me." Marin's voice came through the wood. "Open up." I undid the latch and threw the door open. Marin stood there, holding 2 large coffees and a bag of bagels, looking like a warrior monk in a trench coat. She didn't say anything. She just stepped inside, kicked the door shut with her heel, and pulled me into a hug that squeezed the breath out of me. I held onto her wool coat, smelling the rain and the coffee, and for the first time in 12 hours, I felt the tight knot in my chest loosen just enough to let air in. "You look like hell," she said, pulling back and handing me a coffee. "Drink, then we work." She sat on the edge of the unmade bed, opening her laptop before she even took her coat off. She was an event planner by trade, which meant she handled disasters for a living. To Marin, a viral smear campaign was just a logistics problem with higher stakes. "I found a lawyer," she said, typing furiously. "Lila Vaughn. She is expensive, but she hates bullies, and she specializes in digital defamation. She agreed to a consult at 10. I sat in the desk chair, wrapping my hands around the hot cup. I cannot afford expensive. Marin, I have $3,000 to my name, and I just spent 80 of it on this room. We will figure it out," she said, not looking up. "Credit cards, payment plans, selling a kidney. It doesn't matter. You cannot fight this with a politely worded email. Ellie, you are bringing a knife to a nuclear war." I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter and scalded my tongue, and the pain felt grounding. "Did you look at it this morning?" I asked. "The video?" "Don't," Marin warned. "How many views?" 1.2 million, she said softly. I closed my eyes. 1.2 million people had seen me being shoved off a porch and believed I was a monster. The consultation with Lila Vaughn was over video chat. Marin had set it up on her laptop, positioning the webcam so the dreary motel room was mostly cropped out. Lila was a woman in her 40s with sharp, architectural glasses and a background that looked like a wall of books. She didn't waste time on sympathy. She operated in cold, hard mechanics. "I watched the clip," Lila said, her voice crisp coming through the speakers. "It is damaging. It is designed to be damaging. But here's the problem. Ellie, being mean isn't illegal. Posting a video of a family argument isn't illegal. Generally speaking, but it is edited," I said, leaning toward the screen. "They cut out my questions. They added sound effects. They made me look dangerous. Defamation requires a false statement of fact that causes harm," Lila said. "If they edit it to make you look crazy, that is subjective. It is an opinion. My sister is scary, is protected speech. My sister threatened to burn the house down is a statement of fact, if you didn't say it. And they claim you did. That is actionable. They said I threatened my mother. I said, Mark says it in the video. You threatened her. Good, Lila said. That is a hook. But proving damages is the hard part. You need to show financial loss. Did you lose your job? Not yet. I said, but I might. Document everything, Lila commanded. If your boss treats you differently, write it down. If you lose a contract, get it in writing. But we need more than just the video. We need to prove intent. We need to prove this is a campaign to harm, not just a sister venting. She looked down at her notes. You said there was money involved? I think so. I said, my parents are broke. I think they are doing this to get sympathy donations. Find the money, Lila said, her eyes locking onto mine through the screen. Defamation is a civil tort. But fraud? Fraud is a crime. If they are soliciting money based on a fabricated emergency, that changes the game. Find the money, Ellie, and you find the leverage. After the call, Marin and I turned the motel room into a war room. We divided the labor. Marin monitored the comments and the reposts, flagging anything that contained a threat. I went hunting for the grift. I went to Brooke's Instagram profile, The follower count had jumped to 70,000 overnight. She had posted a story update an hour ago. I clicked the circle. Brooke's face filled the screen. She was in her car, wearing large sunglasses, looking shaken. "Hey guys," she whispered. "Thank you so much for the support. We are hanging in there. A lot of you have asked how you can help." She paused, wiping a non-existent tear from under her glasses. "We do not feel safe in the house right now. The locks are old. We need to upgrade the security system, maybe get some cameras, just until we know she is gone for good. I put a link in my bio for a safety fund. Anything helps. We just want to sleep at night." I felt the bile rise in my throat. A security system. They wanted strangers to pay for a security system to protect them from me, the person who was currently hiding in a motel room with a chair jammed under the doorknob. I clicked the link in her bio. It led to a third-party fundraising site, the Parker Family Safety Fund. Goal: $5,000. Raised: $1,200. They are making money. I said, my voice shaking. "Marin, look, they have made over $1,000 in 3 hours. Marin looked at the screen, her jaw tightening. "That is sick. It is brilliant," I said, feeling a dark, cold admiration for the sheer audacity of it. They created a villain, and now they are selling tickets to the show. I took screenshots. I downloaded the story video. I saved the donation page. Then Marin gasped. "Oh no. What?" I asked. She turned her laptop toward me. "Look at this. It is a reel she posted 20 minutes ago. Proof of the threat." I pressed play. The video was a close-up of a piece of paper lying on the kitchen counter. It was a handwritten note, scrawled in black marker. "I will make you pay for this. That is not my handwriting." I said instantly, "I know." Marin said, "But look at the background." I squinted. Next to the note, sitting on the granite counter, was a piece of junk mail, an envelope. It was addressed to me, Ellie Parker, care of Motel 6, room 214, Maple Glen, Massachusetts. I froze. That was a forwarding label. I had set up mail forwarding the night I left, just for essential bills, using the motel as a temporary placeholder because I didn't have another address yet. How did she get that? She must have intercepted the confirmation letter. I whispered, or she went through the trash here? "No, that is impossible." "Ellie," Marin said, her voice urgent. "The address is visible. Room 214. The room phone rang. The shrill, mechanical trill cut through the air like a siren. I jumped, knocking my coffee onto the floor. It rang again. I stared at the beige plastic device on the nightstand. "Don't answer it," Marin said. It rang a third time. Then it stopped. A moment later, it rang again. I looked at Marin. "They know where I am. We have to go," Marin said, slamming her laptop shut. "Pack, now." The phone rang again. I reached out and ripped the cord from the wall. I threw my clothes into my suitcase. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't zip the bag. Marin grabbed it from me and finished it. We walked out of the room. Heads down. I felt like a fugitive. I expected a mob in the parking lot. There was no mob. Just a gray sky and the hum of traffic. But as we walked to Marin's car, I saw a man in a pickup truck slow down. He looked at me, then at his phone, then back at me. He rolled down his window. "Hey," he shouted. "You the sister?" I didn't answer. I dove into the passenger seat of Marin's Honda. "Get a job," he yelled, spitting out the window. "Freeloader!" Marin gunned the engine and peeled out of the lot. I slid down in the seat until my knees were against the dashboard. I was 32 years old. I had a degree. I had a credit score of 750. And I was hiding on the floor of a Honda Civic because my sister wanted to buy designer boots with donation money. We drove 2 towns over, to a nondescript business hotel in a corporate park. It was sterile, boring, and anonymous. Marin put the room in her name. We spent the afternoon in a silence that felt heavy and suffocating. I created the evidence binder. I created folders on my hard drive. Folder 1, the videos. Folder 2, the monetization. Folder 3, the doxing. Folder 4, the harassment. I went through the comments on Brooke's posts. It was a descent into hell. I hope she starves. Someone should teach her a lesson. I found her LinkedIn. Everyone go report her. I screenshotted every single one. I timestamped them. I saved the URLs. I felt sick. A physical nausea that roiled in my gut. Reading them felt like letting them cut me. Over and over again. But Lila had said, provable facts. These were facts. This was the damage. At 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, the older woman from the break room at Hawthorne Ridge. Sarah, honey, are you okay? I shouldn't be telling you this, but compliance was in a meeting with HR this morning. They were looking at a screen with your face on it. The phrase reputational risk was used. You need to get ahead of this. I read the text out loud to Marin. They are going to fire me. I said, my voice hollow. Not if we prove you are the victim. Marin said, you sent the email? Yes. Then you have established a paper trail. You warned them. That counts for something. Does it? I asked. Or am I just a temp contract that is easier to void than to defend? I knew the answer. In the corporate calculus, I was a liability. The truth didn't matter. The noise did. And Brooke was making a lot of noise. I need my things. I said suddenly, I need the rest of my stuff. My birth certificate, my passport, the rest of my clothes. They are still in that house. We can't go back there. Ellie, I have to. I said, if I lose this job, I need my documents to apply for unemployment. I need my life back. I am not leaving it in their hostage negotiation pile. I called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation, illegal eviction, withholding of property. I requested a civil standby. The officer on the phone sounded bored. We can send a unit to keep the peace, ma'am, but we can't force entry. It's a civil matter. A civil matter, the catch-all phrase for you are on your own. We arrived at the house at 5:30. The sun was low, casting the familiar long shadows across the lawn. A police cruiser was already there, idling at the curb. I got out of Marin's car. My legs felt like lead. The officer, a young man who looked like he would rather be literally anywhere else, stepped out of his vehicle. You the resident? He asked. I was. I said, I am here to get my personal effects. He nodded and walked up the driveway with me. Marin stayed by the car. Filming on her phone. Witnesses. Always witnesses. We reached the porch. I rang the doorbell. Nothing happened. I rang it again. Open up! I called out. I just want my papers. The door remained shut, but the curtains in the living room window moved. Then, the window on the second floor, Brooke's room, slid open. Go away! Dana's voice screeched from above. She was leaning out, her hair wild. Officer, she is harassing us. She is trying to break in. Ma'am, the officer called up. She just wants to retrieve her property. If you let her get her things, she will leave. We don't feel safe, Dana yelled, her voice pitching up into a theatrical sob. She threatened to burn the house down. Look at her. She is aggressive. I was standing perfectly still, my hands visible at my sides. I was wearing a beige cardigan. I looked about as aggressive as a librarian. Mom, please, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Just give me the file box from the closet. That is all I want. Get off my property, Dana screamed. I am calling my lawyer. You are trespassing. The officer sighed and turned to me. Look, ma'am, if she won't open the door, I can't kick it in. You have to go through the courts. Get an order. But my passport is in there, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. Civil matter. He repeated, I suggest you leave before she decides to press charges for trespassing. She has revoked your permission to be here. I looked up at the window. Brooke was standing behind Dana. She was filming. Of course she was. This was the sequel. The Stalker Returns. I felt a cold, hard rage settle in my chest. They were enjoying this. This wasn't fear. It was power. I turned to walk away. As I walked down the driveway, defeated. My eyes snagged on something near the garage. It was a small yard sign, pushed into the mulch near the rhododendrons. It was dark green, discreet, Donovan Sons Construction, kitchens, baths, additions. I paused. "Officer, can we go?" The cop called from his car. I kept walking, but my mind was racing. Donovan Sons. Dana had told me they renovated the kitchen 6 months ago. She had complained about the dust, but when I had asked about the cost, she had changed the subject. She said Mark had saved up, but Mark had been retired for 5 years. His pension was fixed, and they were borrowing money from my grandmother's dormant account to buy groceries. You don't renovate a kitchen when you are stealing $200 from a savings account. I got into Marin's car. "Did you get it?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I got something else." "Drive. Back at the hotel." I didn't go to sleep. I went to the county clerk's website. Public records are the one thing liars forget about. You can edit a video. You can delete a comment. But you cannot delete a lien filing from a government database without a court order. I searched for my parents' names. Mark and Dana Parker, the list populated, deed, 1998. Refinance, 2005. Refinance, 2012. And then, at the top of the list, open-end mortgage / home equity line of credit. Lender, Shadow Creek Capital. Amount, $150,000. Date recorded, February 14th, 2025. February, 8 months ago, $150,000. I stared at the number. That was a massive loan. Enough to redo the kitchen 5 times over. Enough to pay off their cars. Enough to live comfortably for years. So why were they broke in October? Why were they stealing my grandmother's money? Why were they asking strangers for $5,000 for a security system? I clicked on the document image. It was a standard PDF. I scrolled through the legalese until I found the borrower section. Mark Parker, Dana Parker, property address, 42 Maple Avenue. I scrolled down to the notice section, where legal notices regarding this loan should be sent. Usually, it is the property address, but it wasn't. Mailing address, P.O., Box 772, Larkhaven. M.A., Larkhaven, the next town over. Why would my parents, who lived in Maple Glen, have a P.O. box in Larkhaven for a secret loan? I opened a new tab. I went to Brooke's Instagram. I clicked on her link in bio page again, the one that hosted her donation link, her Amazon wishlist, and her other social handles. I scrolled to the bottom. There was a tiny footer, required by the anti-spam laws for mass emails or newsletters. Correspondence. Brooke P. Media, P.O., Box 772, Larkhaven, M.A. The world stopped spinning. The loan wasn't for the kitchen. The loan notices weren't going to the house. The loan notices were going to Brooke. My parents had taken out $150,000 against the house, and the paperwork was being routed to my sister, and the money was gone. I sat back in the uncomfortable hotel chair, the glow of the laptop illuminating my face in the dark room. They weren't just protecting their pride, they were protecting a crime. Brooke had drained the equity from the house. She had burned through $150,000 in 8 months. And now that the money was gone and the bills were coming due, she needed a new revenue stream. She didn't just need content, she needed a scapegoat. She needed me out of the house so I wouldn't see the foreclosure notices when they started arriving. She was bankrupting them, and my parents were helping her destroy me to cover it up. "Marin," I whispered. Marin stirred in the other bed. "Wake up," I said. "I found the money." I spent the next 3 hours connecting the dots. I found the event planning business that Brooke had registered 2 years ago. BP Events, LLC. Status, dissolved. I found a small claims court filing against BP Events from a florist for $4,000, unpaid. I found a Venmo history from a public feed she hadn't scrubbed. Payments to luxury car rental, payments to resort booking. It was a classic bleed. She lived a champagne life on a malt liquor budget, and when her own credit ran dry, she had tapped the only asset left, my parents' home. Mark and Dana weren't just victims of her manipulation. They were co-conspirators in their own demise. They had signed that loan, they knew. And the renovation? The Donovan Sons sign? I searched for the contractor. The website was legitimate. I looked at their recent projects gallery. There was no kitchen from Maple Glen. I looked at the sign in my memory again. It was clean, brand new. It was a prop, just like the suitcase in the hall, just like the note on the counter. They put the sign up to explain where the money went, in case anyone asked. Oh, we spent it on the kitchen, but no one ever saw the kitchen. It was all smoke. The sun was coming up again, another gray day, but this time, I didn't feel the dread. I felt the cold, hard clarity of a prosecutor. I had the motive. Now I just needed to survive long enough to present the case. My phone buzzed. It was an email notification. From HR, Hawthorne Ridge Solutions. Subject, meeting request. Employment status. Dear Ellie, please make yourself available for a video conference at 9 o'clock this morning to discuss your contract. I looked at the time. It was 7:15. I had less than 2 hours to save my job. I looked at the folder on my desktop. Evidence. It wasn't enough to just say I was innocent. I had to show them that I was the target of a financial crime. I had to show them that keeping me was less risky than firing me, because if they fired me, they were participating in the harassment. I stood up and walked to the bathroom. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. I looked pale. But I didn't look like a victim anymore. I put on my blazer. I brushed my hair. I put on lipstick. I walked back to the desk and woke Marin up. Get up, I said. I need you to prep me. I have a meeting. Marin sat up, rubbing her eyes. With who? HR, I said. She groaned. Oh God, are you ready? I looked at the screenshot of the P.O. box match. I looked at the mortgage deed. No, I said, but I am armed. The conference room in Lila Vaughn's office smelled of lemon polish and expensive coffee, a stark contrast to the stale cigarette smoke of the Motel 6 and the antiseptic blandness of the business hotel where Marin and I were currently hiding. I sat at a mahogany table that was large enough to land a small aircraft on. My hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. Lila sat opposite me. Her posture perfect, a legal pad aligned with the edge of the table. She looked like a woman who did not lose. We are not filing a lawsuit today. Ellie, she said, her voice cool and measured. Filing a lawsuit makes it public record immediately. The press picks it up. The internet sleuths find the docket. We are not ready for that circus yet. Today, we are firing a warning shot. She slid a document across the table. It was thick, printed on heavy bond paper. This is a preservation letter, she explained. It is a formal legal demand sent to your sister, your parents, and the major repost accounts. It puts them on notice that litigation is pending and that they are legally required to preserve all evidence. That includes the raw footage of the video, the project files showing the edits, text messages, emails, and financial records. I stared at the paper. It felt heavy in my hand, like a weapon I wasn't sure I knew how to use. If they delete anything after receiving this, Lila continued, her eyes sharp behind her glasses. It is called spoliation of evidence. It allows a judge to instruct a jury to assume the missing evidence was damning. It is a trap. If they keep the footage, we prove they edited it. If they delete the footage, we prove they are hiding the truth. Will this stop them? I asked. Lila leaned back. It will scare them. Bullies like your sister operate on the assumption that you will just take it because you are afraid of the noise. This tells her that you are not afraid of the noise. You are bringing the signal. I signed the engagement letter. It cost me a significant chunk of my remaining savings. But Marin had insisted. You are not buying a lawyer, she had said. You are buying a shield. As I walked out of the office, the autumn wind bit through my coat. I felt a strange mixture of nausea and power. I had spent 3 days reacting, dodging, and hiding. Now, for the first time, I was moving forward. My next stop was the local branch of First National. It was 20 minutes away, in a strip mall next to a dry cleaner. I wore sunglasses and a hat, terrified that someone would recognize me from the video. The internet had branded me a psycho daughter, and I walked with my head down, flinching every time a car door slammed. I sat in the small cubicle of a personal banker named Timothy, a young man with an unfortunate mustache and a very slow computer. I need to see the signature cards and withdrawal slips for this account, I said, sliding my ID and the account number across the desk. For the last 5 years, Timothy typed. Frowned. Typed again. That is a lot of records. Ms. Parker, we usually charge a research fee. I don't care, I said. Just print them. He worked for 20 minutes while I stared at a poster on the wall advertising low-interest auto loans. Finally, the printer whirred to life. He handed me a stack of papers. I flipped through them. The recent ones, the small transfers to cover overdrafts, were done electronically. But the older ones, the ones from 3, 4, 5 years ago, were physical withdrawal slips. August 12, 2019. Withdrawal, $300. Signature, Ellie Parker. I stared at the ink. The loops on the E were too wide. The P was jagged. It looked like someone had practiced my signature a dozen times but couldn't quite capture the fluid muscle memory of it. It looked like a drawing of my name, not a signature. I flipped to another, December 20th, 2020. Withdrawal, $500. Signature, Ellie Parker. This one was even worse. The slant was wrong. It leaned backward, while I wrote with a forward tilt. I felt a cold hollowness open up in my stomach. This wasn't just my parents borrowing money. This was forgery. Intentional. Practiced forgery. They had walked into a bank, pretended to be me, and stolen money that my grandmother had left for my future. I looked at the dates again. August 2019. I was in Chicago then, working my first real job. I hadn't been in Massachusetts for 6 months. I looked at Timothy. These aren't my signatures, he blinked, looking uncomfortable. Well, ma'am, if you shared the account. I didn't share it, I said, my voice rising slightly before I caught myself. I was the sole account holder after I turned 18. These are forgeries. He pulled back. That is a serious accusation. You would need to file a fraud affidavit. It freezes the account. It triggers an investigation. Do it, I said. I walked out of the bank with copies of the slips in a manila envelope. The sun was shining, but everything looked gray. I sat in my car, the envelope on the passenger seat. I picked up my phone. I dialed Mark. He answered on the third ring. His voice sounded thin, tired. Hello? Dad, I said, it's me. Don't hang up. There was a long silence. I could hear the television in the background, a game show host shouting about prizes. Ellie, he said, you shouldn't be calling. Your mother is. She is really upset. I am looking at a withdrawal slip from August 2019, I said. My voice was calm. It sounded like someone else's voice, someone devoid of emotion. It is for $300. The signature says Ellie Parker. But I was in Chicago in August 2019. Silence. The game show host cheered. Dad, I asked, did you sign this? Ellie, please, he whispered. Or was it Mom? I continued. Or maybe Brooke? It looks a little shaky, like someone was nervous. It is just money. Ellie, he burst out, his voice cracking. Why do you care about the money? You have a job. You have a life. We were drowning. So you stole it. I said, we didn't steal it. We borrowed it. We are family. You forged my name. Dad. That is a felony. That isn't family. That is a crime. He started to cry. It was a wet, pathetic sound that made my skin crawl. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He sobbed. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Brooke said she just needed a little help. She said she would pay it back. She always says she will pay it back. Brooke, I said. It always comes back to Brooke. She promised. He wept. She promised this video would fix it. She said if we just went along with the story, people would donate, and we could pay off the loan before the bank took the house. We were just trying to save the house. Ellie, I closed my eyes. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. The video, the lies, the destruction of my reputation. It was all just a fundraising campaign to cover up a home equity loan they had burned through. You sacrificed me for a mortgage payment. I said. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the dashboard. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was in a place beyond sadness. A cold, desolate landscape where the people who were supposed to love you were just parasites wearing familiar faces. That night, back at the hotel, I couldn't sleep. The pieces of the puzzle were shifting, locking into a new, terrifying picture. Why kick me out now? If the goal was just money, they could have launched the GoFundMe while I was still living there. They could have said I was sick or that we had a family emergency. But they needed me gone. They needed me physically removed from the premises. I thought about the house, the hallway, the closet, the tax stuff folder. I had seen it a week before the eviction. I was looking for the vacuum cleaner in the hall closet. On the top shelf, pushed back behind a stack of old towels, was a thick, accordion-style folder. It was labeled in Brooke's handwriting, tax stuff/do not touch. I had reached for it, just out of idle curiosity, when Brooke had appeared in the hallway. She had screamed at me, "Get out of my stuff! That's private!" I hadn't thought much of it then. Brooke was always secretive. But now, if the notices for the Shadow Creek Capital loan were going to a PEO box, there had to be other paperwork, origination documents, deed transfers, things you couldn't send to a PEO box. They were in that closet, and I had been asking questions. I had found the bank statement. I had noticed the missing items. I was getting too close. The viral video wasn't just a grift. It was an extraction. They had to eject the foreign body, me, before I found the tumor. I needed to see where the money went. The bank records I had were only the withdrawals. I needed to see the destination. I logged into my laptop. I couldn't access the First National account online because I didn't have the password. Mark or Dana must have set it up. But I had the account number now from the slips. I called the bank's 24-hour line. I navigated the automated hell until I got a human. I need to order replacement statements for the last 2 years. I said, and I need to update the mailing address. I gave them Marin's address. The expedited package arrived 2 days later. Marin and I sat on the floor of the hotel room, spreading the papers out like a map of a battlefield. It was a bleeding wound. Transfer to BP Events, LLC. Transfer to BP Events, LLC. Transfer to Brooke Parker. Debit, luxury auto lease. There was a recurring transfer, every month, for $2,000, to an account labeled BP Events. I looked up BP Events on my phone. BP Events, LLC. Registered agent, Brooke Parker. Status, involuntarily dissolved by the Secretary of State. The business didn't exist. It had been dissolved for failure to file annual reports, but the bank account was still open, and my parents were feeding it. Brooke was using a dead company to launder money from my parents, and from me, to fund her lifestyle. The event planning was a fiction. The only event she was planning was her own survival. While I was drowning in paper trails, Brooke was escalating the digital war. I received a notification on my burner account. Brooke had posted a new reel. The thumbnail was a picture of a police car parked in front of my parents' house, the car from my civil standby attempt. The caption read, "She came back. We are terrified. Stalking restraining order PTSD." I clicked play. The video was shot from the upstairs window. Looking down at me standing on the driveway, the audio was Dana screaming. "I don't feel safe." Brooke's voiceover was a whisper, breathless and shaky. "You guys, she showed up today. She tried to force her way in. The police had to intervene. We are talking to our lawyers about a restraining order. I don't know why she won't leave us alone. If you see her, please, do not engage. She is dangerous." The comments were a wall of hate. "Lock her up. Why isn't she in jail? Stay strong. Brooke, we are with you." I felt the walls closing in. She was rewriting history in real time. I wasn't there to force my way in. I was there to get my birth certificate. I wasn't stalking. I was retrieving my property. But the truth was boring. The lie was thrilling. I looked at Marin. She is talking about a restraining order. Let her try, Marin said. Her face grim. A judge needs evidence. Not Instagram captions. But if she files, it becomes public record. I said, my employer will see it. Restraining order filed against Ellie Parker. It doesn't matter if it is granted or denied. The filing itself is a stain. I felt trapped. If I stayed silent, the narrative solidified. I became the crazy stalker sister. If I responded, I looked defensive, unstable, involved in the drama. I have to say something. I said, I cannot let this stand. Marin sighed. Lila said no fighting in the comments. I am not fighting in the comments. I said, I am making a statement, a press release for an audience of one. My reputation. I opened my personal Instagram, the private one, the one with only 200 followers. Mostly college friends and old coworkers. I drafted a text post, plain black background, white text, no music, no filters. My name is Ellie Parker. Recently, an edited video of me was posted online without my consent. This video misrepresents a family dispute and has been manipulated to portray false events. I was not violent. I did not threaten anyone. I was illegally evicted from my home. I am currently safe and have retained legal counsel to address the defamation, harassment, and financial irregularities involved in this situation. The safety fund soliciting donations is based on false pretenses. Please respect my privacy and the privacy of my workplace. I will not be commenting further. I showed it to Marin. She read it twice. It is dry. It is boring. Good. I said, it is perfect, she said. I pressed share. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt like I had just stood up in a crowded theater and shouted fire. I waited for the backlash. I waited for Brooke to screenshot it and mock me, but the silence was immediate. For an hour, nothing happened. Then, a few likes from friends, a comment from a cousin I hadn't seen in years. Love you, Elle. Call me if you need anything. And then, the direct message request. It appeared in my hidden requests folder. The handle was SarahJ_1992. No profile picture. I clicked it. SarahJ_1992. Hi, Ellie. You don't know me, but I used to be friends with Brooke in college. We lived together for a year. I stared at the screen. SarahJ_1992. I saw the video. I saw the way she looked at the camera. I know that look. SarahJ_1992. She did this to me. My breath hitched. I typed back. Ellie. What do you mean? 3 dots appeared. They pulsed for a long time. Then, an image loaded. It was a screenshot of a text thread. The date was from 4 years ago. The contact name was Brooke P. Brooke P. Crying take 3.mov. Brooke P. Does this look real, or is it too much snot? Sarah. It looks intense. What is this for? Brooke P. My landlord. If I send him this and say I was robbed, he might give me an extension on rent. I need to look dangerous, though. Like, traumatized but edgy. I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the hotel air conditioning. Crying take 3. Make me look dangerous. Another screenshot loaded. Brooke P. If we make Sarah look like the villain, the sorority will side with us. We just need to provoke her. Record her when she is drunk. Edit out the context. I looked at the messages. This wasn't a one-time desperation move to save the house. This was a playbook. Brooke had done this before. She had staged crises, fabricated victimhood, and edited reality to get what she wanted, whether it was rent money or social clout. SarahJ_1992. She ruined my reputation on campus. Said I stole from her. I had to transfer. She is a predator. Ellie, she doesn't have friends. She has cast members. I sat back, the phone slipping from my hand onto the bedspread. It wasn't just sibling rivalry. It wasn't just a family tragedy. I was dealing with a professional. Brooke was a director, and for the last 10 years, she had been casting everyone around her in a reality show that only she knew was being filmed. My parents weren't just enablers. They were trapped in her production, terrified that if they stopped reading their lines, she would edit them out of the family entirely, or worse. I looked at the screenshot again. Does this look real? She practiced her tears. She rehearsed her trauma. I remembered the video of me being kicked out. The way she had whispered, "I am shaking." The way she had checked the lighting. It was all a performance. And if it was a performance, that meant there was a script. And if there was a script, there were outtakes. I picked up my phone and typed back to Sarah. Ellie, do you have anything else? Sarah J_1992. I have everything. I never deleted it. I was waiting for her to do it again. I looked at Marin. We have a whistleblower. I said. Marin looked up from her laptop. Who? Someone who knows the script. I said. I stood up. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, mathematical focus. Brooke had built a fortress out of lies. But she had used the same blueprints she had used before, and she had left the plans with someone she thought she had buried. I am going to burn her show to the ground, I whispered. I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Evidence. I created a new subfolder, Pattern of Conduct. I dragged Sarah's screenshots into it. The file transfer bar filled up, green and steady. It looked like justice. The studio apartment was 400 square feet of drywall and laminate flooring, located above a bakery in a part of town that was technically safe but aesthetically depressing. It cost $1,200 a month, which was 40% of my take-home pay, but it had a deadbolt that I had installed myself, and the only camera in the vicinity was the security feed in the bakery downstairs. I moved in on a Tuesday. I had no furniture, so I slept on an air mattress Marin had lent me. My dining table was a cardboard box, but when I locked the door at night, I was the only one with a key. That silence, the silence of solitude, not the silence of secrets, was worth every penny I didn't have. I didn't have time to decorate. I was fighting a war on two fronts, the legal battle to clear my name and the corporate battle to keep my paycheck. Lila Vaughn's strategy was surgical. We sat in her office 3 days after I moved in, the city skyline gray and imposing behind her. We are filing for a civil protective order, Lila said, sliding a draft across the desk, not for domestic violence in the traditional sense, but for harassment and stalking. We are citing the doxing, the solicitation of third-party harassment, and the use of your image for commercial gain without consent. Will a judge grant it? I asked. The internet feels like the Wild West. Judges usually just shrug and say, log off. Lila smiled, a razor-thin expression. That is why we are not focusing on the speech. We are focusing on the safety. We have the police report from your attempted retrieval. We have the fundraising page where she claims you are a danger to solicit money. We are arguing that her monetization of the conflict creates a financial incentive for her to escalate the harassment. She isn't just venting, Ellie. She is farming you for content, and that makes you a commodity, not just a sister. I looked at the document. Eleanor Parker versus Brooke Parker. It looked so sterile on paper. In reality, it felt like amputating a limb. And the fraud? I asked. The signatures? That is the leverage, Lila said. We prepare the civil complaint for conversion and fraud regarding the bank account. We hold it back. We serve her the protective order first. We let her know we are watching the money. If she doesn't back down, we drop the fraud suit. It is the nuclear option. I nodded. I felt cold all the time now. A deep, bone-weary chill that no amount of coffee could fix. Do it, I said. The corporate front was bleeding. I was called into a meeting with HR on a Friday morning. I walked into the glass-walled office of the Director of People Operations, a woman named Karen who always smiled with her mouth, but never with her eyes. My direct manager, Tom, was there too, looking at his shoes. Ellie, Karen began, clasping her hands on the desk. We wanted to touch base regarding your performance review. As you know, we were discussing converting your contract to a full-time senior coordinator role. I nodded, my heart thumping. I had exceeded every metric. I had cleaned up the billing backlog in 3 months. We are going to have to pause that process, Karen said. The air left the room. Pause? I asked. Why? My numbers are solid. It is the external situation, Karen said, gesturing vaguely to the air. We have received several emails. Phone calls to the main switchboard, people claiming to be concerned citizens. While we understand this is a personal matter, Hawthorne Ridge values its reputation. We cannot have a senior employee associated with ongoing public conflict. I looked at Tom. He wouldn't meet my gaze. I am the victim here. Karen, I said, keeping my voice steady, I sent you the documentation. I am being targeted by a harassment campaign. Punishing me for that is exactly what they want. We are not punishing you, Karen said, her voice dropping to that soothing, corporate HR tone that meant she was absolutely punishing me. We are just waiting for the dust to settle. Once this blows over, we can revisit the promotion. For now, we will extend your current contract for another 3 months. Same rate. I felt a flash of heat, a sudden, sharp urge to flip the table. Same rate. No benefits, no security. Just enough rope to keep me working, but not enough to pull myself up. I understood. I walked back to my cubicle. I didn't cry. I didn't text Marin. I opened my drawer and took out a fresh legal pad. Date, October 24th. Event, promotion denied due to targeted harassment. Financial impact, $6,000 in lost salary increase. Health insurance value, approximately $500 per month. I added it to the evidence binder. If they wanted to make me a liability, I would document exactly how much their cowardice cost me. Every dollar Brooks stole from my reputation was going into the ledger. The following Wednesday, I got the window. Lila had arranged it with my parents' attorney, a family friend of Mark's who probably didn't know the half of what he was representing. I was allowed 2 hours to retrieve the remainder of my personal property. A police officer would be present. I pulled into the driveway at 10 in the morning. The house looked exactly the same. The hydrangeas were dying back for winter. The Donovan Sons sign was still there, a lie planted in the mulch. Dana opened the door. She didn't look at me. She looked at the police officer standing behind me. "You have 2 hours," she said to the cop. I walked past her. The smell of the house hit me. Lemon polish and secrets. It made me want to gag. I went straight to my room. I packed the rest of my winter clothes. I took my diploma off the wall. I took the small jewelry box that held my grandmother's locket. Then, I went to the hall closet. The police officer stood at the top of the stairs. Bored, scrolling on his phone, Dana was downstairs, aggressively vacuuming the living room. The noise a wall of sound designed to drown out my presence. I opened the closet door. The towels were there. The board games were there. The accordion folder labeled tax stuff/do not touch was gone. I knew it would be. They had scrubbed the scene. I began to sift through the remaining items. Sheets, a spare duvet, a box of old batteries. I reached to the back of the top shelf, my hand brushing against the rough drywall. My fingers hit something small and papery wedged between the shelf and the wall. I pulled it out. It was a corner of an envelope. It had been ripped, likely when someone yanked the folder down in a hurry. It was just a jagged triangle of white paper, but it had a clear plastic window. Through the plastic, I could read the bottom half of a return address label. A Dow Creek Capital, Box 404, Mington, DE. And below that, typed on the letter itself, sent to P.O. Box 772, Cavan, M. a 018. I shoved the scrap into my pocket. I checked the rest of the closet. Nothing. I walked into Brooke's room. It was empty. She had made herself scarce for the day, probably to avoid being served papers, though Lila had hired a process server who was currently sitting outside the gym Brooke frequented. I stood in the center of my sister's room. It was a shrine to her vanity. Ring lights, backdrops, a whiteboard with a content calendar. I looked at the whiteboard. Monday, sad update, safety. Tuesday, throwback pic. Happy family versus, now. Wednesday, Amazon haul. Self-care. Thursday, live queue. A, ignore trolls. It was a business plan. Sad update. I walked out. I am done. I told the officer, Dana stopped vacuuming when I came down the stairs. She stood by the front door, her arms crossed. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her face was lined with a tension that makeup couldn't hide. "Goodbye, Mom," I said. She looked at me, her eyes wet. "Why are you doing this? Ellie? Why can't you just stop?" "Stop what?" I asked. "Breathing? Stop hurting us," she whispered. I stared at her. The delusion was total. In her mind, my resistance was the aggression. My refusal to be destroyed was an attack on her peace. I walked out the door and didn't look back. Larkhaven was 10 miles west, a town of strip malls and chain restaurants. I drove there straight from the house, the scrap of paper burning a hole in my pocket. P.O. Box 772. I found the address Lila had pulled from the public records. It wasn't the main post office. It was a place called the Mail Room, tucked between a vape shop and a nail salon. I walked in. A bell chimed. The air smelled of packing tape and cardboard. A young guy with headphones around his neck was behind the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Popping gum." "I'm looking for information on Box 772, I said. "I think my sister rents it. She lost the key." He shook his head. "Can't give out info without ID matching the box. Lady. Store policy." I expected that. I wasn't there for the clerk. I was there for the environment. I looked around. There was a wall of brass boxes. Box 772 was near the bottom. I stood there, pretending to check my phone. I watched the flow of the store. People came in, opened boxes, threw junk mail into a large recycling bin by the door, and left. I waited. 10 minutes later, the clerk went into the back room to grab a package. I walked over to the recycling bin. It was overflowing. I knew Brooke's habits. She opened mail immediately. She had zero patience. If she had picked up mail recently, the evidence would be in the trash. I scanned the top layer, flyers, catalogs, and then I saw it. A small, shiny pink cardboard box. Glow Bomb, berry glaze. It was Brooke's brand. She was obsessed with it. She spent $20 a tube and applied it like it was oxygen. I reached in and grabbed it. Inside the small box was the receipt from the Sephora in the Larkhaven Mall, dated yesterday, and underneath the lip balm box was a crumpled envelope. To Brooke Parker, P.O., Box 772. From Shadow Creek Capital. It was open, empty, but the envelope was there. She had stood right here, checked the secret mail, applied her lip balm, thrown the trash away, and walked out. She was the primary point of contact for the loan. The notices weren't going to Mark. They were going to Brooke. I took a photo of the envelope and the lip balm box in the trash. Then I took the envelope. I walked out of the store. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of confirmation. Brooke wasn't just hiding the mail from me. She was hiding it from Mark and Dana. She was intercepting the reality of their debt before it could reach the house. My phone buzzed at 8 o'clock that night. I was in my studio, eating soup out of a mug. "Mark, can we meet?" "Alone, please." I stared at the screen. My father hadn't texted me directly in 3 weeks. "Ellie, where?" "Mark, the Rusty Spoon, off exit 4, now." The Rusty Spoon was a 24-hour diner that smelled of grease and regret. It was neutral ground. I arrived at 9. Mark was sitting in a booth in the back, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked terrible. His skin was gray, his eyes sunken. He had lost weight. I sat down opposite him. I didn't order anything. "Dad," I said. He didn't look up. He was staring into the black coffee as if reading a fortune he didn't want to know. I saw the withdrawal slips. "Ellie," he said quietly. I waited. "It wasn't me," he said. "I know." I said. The handwriting was wrong. He looked up then. His eyes were red-rimmed. "It was your mother." I felt a jolt of shock. "Mom?" Mark nodded. A slow, painful movement. 3 years ago. She got into something. An investment group. Online. Some friend from high school added her to a Facebook group. Gold futures. Crypto. I don't even know what it was. I closed my eyes. A scam. She put in 5,000. Mark said. It doubled in a month. On the screen. at least. So she put in more. She drained the joint savings. Then she started borrowing. She thought she was making a fortune. Ellie, she wanted to surprise us. She wanted to pay for your wedding. She wanted to buy a beach house. He took a shaky breath. Then the website went down. The group was deleted. The friend blocked her. $50,000. Ellie, gone. I stared at him. $50,000. She was terrified to tell me. Mark whispered, so she tried to fix it. She remembered your grandmother's account. She thought she could trade her way back. Just borrow a little, make a profit, put it back. But you can't trade your way out of a hole. And Brooke? I asked. Where does Brooke fit in? She found out. Mark said, she caught your mother crying in the garage one night last year. Dana told her everything. Brooke said she would handle it. She said she had a business plan. She said she could make money online, influence ring, whatever you call it. She took charge, I said, realizing the dynamic. She took the wheel. Mark corrected. She told us to take the equity loan. She said she would invest it in her brand, and the returns would pay off the scam debt and the mortgage. She promised, Ellie. She was so confident. And you believed her? We were desperate, Mark hissed. We were facing bankruptcy. Dana was suicidal over the guilt. Brooke was the only one offering a lifeline. So the loan. Brooke spent it, Mark said, his voice breaking. She spent it on trips, on clothes, on production costs. She kept saying you have to spend money to make money, but the money just went, and then the payments started bouncing, and then I came home. I said, Mark nodded. You came home, and you started asking about money. You started noticing the mail. Brooke panicked. She said if you found out, you would turn us in. You would put your mother in jail for the forgery. So she decided to destroy me instead. She said it was the only way, Mark said, tears spilling onto his cheeks. She said if we made a big dramatic scene, if we made you the villain, the internet would pay for everything. She called it a narrative arc. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to grip the edge of the table. They weren't evil. They were pathetic. They were stupid. Frightened people who had been conned by a stranger and then conned by their own daughter. Brooke had weaponized their shame. She had held Dana's crime over her head to force compliance. Do what I say, or Ellie finds out you stole her money and sends you to prison. That was the leverage. Brooke has the mail. Dad, I said, I found proof. She is intercepting the notices from Shadow Creek Capital. The money is gone. The house is going to be foreclosed on. Mark put his head in his hands. Oh God, she is playing you. I said, she isn't saving you. She is eating you alive. And she fed me to the wolves to buy herself more time. Mark reached across the table. He tried to take my hand. I pulled it back. Ellie, please, he begged. Help us. We don't know what to do. You are the smart one. You always were. Fix this. I looked at him. My father. The man who had taught me to ride a bike. The man who had stood by while his daughter shoved me off a porch and locked the door. I felt a tug of empathy, sharp and painful. I wanted to help. I wanted to be the good daughter, the savior, the one who cleaned up the mess. But then I remembered the video. I remembered the comments. I remembered the promotion I didn't get. I remembered the motel room. I am not the fixer. Dad, I said, my voice cold and hard. I am the villain, remember? Ellie, I will not go to jail for you. I said, and I will not let Brooke win. What are you going to do? He whispered. I stood up. I put a $20 bill on the table for the coffee I didn't drink. I am going to tell the truth. I said, but your mother, the forgery. I won't press charges for the forgery if you testify against Brooke. I said. Mark's mouth fell open. You have a choice. Dad, I said, you can save your house, or you can save Brooke's lies, but you cannot save both. I walked out of the diner. The night air was cold. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the chill. I felt the heat of the fire I was about to light. Back at the studio, I sat at my computer. I had the evidence. I had the bank transfers to the fake company. I had the P.O. box link. I had the lip balm receipt. I had Sarah's screenshots of the rehearsed crying. And now, I had Mark's confession. I wasn't going to post it all. Not yet. Lila would kill me if I dumped the whole case file online. But I needed to stop the money. I needed to cut the supply line. I opened the Instagram Help Center. Report a violation. Type, impersonation/harassment. Subtype, solicitation of funds under false pretenses. I attached the police report number from the civil standby. I attached the text from Sarah showing the crying rehearsal from the previous incident. I attached the screenshot of the dissolved BP Events LLC status. Then, I drafted a formal demand letter to the fundraising platform hosting the Safety Fund, to whom it may concern. This fundraiser is fraudulent. The beneficiary claims to need security from a family member who has been legally removed from the premises and has not been charged with any crime. The funds are being diverted to a personal account for non-security purposes. Attached is evidence of the beneficiary's prior history of fabricating victimization for financial gain. I hit send. Then, I opened my evidence binder. I turned to a fresh page. Phase 2. The offensive. I knew what would happen next. When the money stopped, Brooke would explode. She wouldn't retreat. She would attack. She would escalate. She would do something desperate and loud. I was counting on it. I pulled up the LiveStream notification settings on my burner account. I set an alert for the real Brooke P. I was ready. I looked at the small, empty studio apartment. It wasn't much, but it was built on truth, and that was a foundation that Brooke, for all her followers, didn't have. I turned off the light and waited for the notification that I knew was coming. The notification arrived at 6 p.m. on a Friday. It flashed across the screen of my burner phone like a tornado warning. The real Brooke P is going live. The final update. The truth about my sister. I sat in my studio apartment, the air smelling of the instant oatmeal I had made for dinner. My laptop was open, connected to a screen recording software. On the other end of a video call, minimized in the corner, was Lila Vaughn. "Are you ready?" Lila asked. Her voice was calm, the voice of a general watching a battlefield from a safe distance. "I am ready," I said. "Remember," Lila said, "do not engage. Do not comment. This has been the hardest week of my life. My family is broken. We are living in fear. And I just found out." She paused, swallowing hard. "I found out that my sister, Ellie, has hired a lawyer." The chat exploded. Rows of angry emojis. The audacity. "Sue her back. Stay strong, Brooke. She is trying to silence us." Brooke continued, her voice trembling. "She is threatening to sue me for defamation. Me, the victim. She got kicked out because she was violent, and now she wants to use the legal system to bully us into silence. It is so vindictive." I watched her hands. She was twisting a tissue. It was a nice touch. "I am not going to let her win," Brooke said, looking fiercely into the lens. "I am going to show you guys the truth. I have receipts. I have messages. I have proof that she has been unstable for years." She reached for her laptop, which was evidently sitting in front of her phone. "I am going to share my screen," she said. "I want you to see the emails she sent me. I want you to see the hate on my screen." The view shifted. Brooke was using a broadcasting software that allowed her to project her desktop. "Okay, can you see this?" she asked. The screen showed her desktop background, a photo of her and Dana smiling at a brunch. It was cluttered with files. She moved her mouse cursor, hunting for a specific folder. "Here," she said. "Look at this folder." She double-clicked a folder named Ellie_evidence. It opened, but inside, there weren't just emails. There was a list of video files. Brooke was looking at the chat on her phone, waiting for validation. She wasn't looking at the monitor where her desktop was projected. My eyes scanned the file names. img_4022.mov, img_4023.mov, draft_kickout_final.mp4, and then, right below it, project_kickout_take3_best cry. Par pro J. I froze. Lila saw it too. Screenshot. She commanded. I hit the key. Take 3 best cry. It was a Premiere Pro project file. Editor software. And she had labeled it Take 3. In the chat, the heart stopped. Wait, a user named Jessica_M wrote, What is Take 3? Did she rehearse the kickout? Another user asked. Look at the file name. Someone typed in all caps. Best cry? Brooke didn't notice immediately. She was busy opening a PDF of a generic email I had sent asking for the Wi-Fi password 2 months ago, trying to frame it as aggressive. See? She said. Look at how she speaks to me. But the chat wasn't looking at the email. They were looking at the file list that was still visible in the background window. Brooke, why is there a file called Best Cry? Is this staged? Show us the raw footage. Brooke finally glanced at the chat stream. Her brow furrowed. What? She asked. What are you guys talking about? She looked at her monitor. She saw the file list. Panic, sheer and unadulterated, washed over her face. She scrambled to close the window, clicking frantically. That is just a file name. She stammered. I am an editor. I label things weirdly. It doesn't mean anything. You did 3 takes of your sister getting kicked out? A user asked. No, Brooke said, her voice pitching up. No, that was from something else. That was an acting reel I was working on. It just got saved in the wrong folder. But it says kick out. The comments pointed out project_kickout. Brooke's face flushed a deep, blotchy red. You guys are missing the point, she yelled, forgetting to whisper. She is dangerous. Who cares what the file is named? She shoved me. The video looked edited. Someone wrote, I said that from day 1, unfollowing. Another wrote, Stop it! Brooke screamed at the screen. Stop trolling me. You don't know what it is like. We were terrified. We had to plan it. The room went silent, or at least, the digital room did. The comments froze for a split second. We had to plan it. She had just admitted premeditation. I didn't mean plan it like that. Brooke backpedaled, sweat visible on her hairline. I meant we had to plan how to get her out safely, because she is crazy. We knew she would react. So we had to be ready to record. That is all I meant. My phone on the desk buzzed. It was a text from Mark. Dad, make it stop. She is ruining everything. I looked at the screen. Mark was calling Brooke. The notification banner dropped down from the top of Brooke's phone screen, obscuring her face. Incoming call. Dad. Brooke swiped it away violently. I am not lying, she shouted. Why are you guys attacking me? I am the victim. The phone rang again. Incoming call. Dad. She swiped it away again, harder this time, knocking the phone slightly on its stand. God, leave me alone, she shrieked at the phone. Why is your dad calling? The chat asked. Does he know you are live? Is he in on the take 3? Brooke was spiraling. She was breathing fast, hyperventilating. She grabbed her water bottle, her hands shaking so badly she spilled water on her shirt. She should have just left. She blurted out, if she had just left like we planned, none of this would have happened. But she had to stay. She had to keep digging. Digging for what? The chat asked. For the money, Brooke yelled. She wouldn't shut up about the money. I sat back in my chair. Lila was typing furiously on her end. We got her, Lila whispered. She just linked the eviction to a financial motive. That is extortion. Brooke seemed to realize she had crossed a line. She stopped, eyes wide, staring at the camera as if seeing a ghost. I mean, she wanted our money, she whispered, trying to pivot back to the script. She was stealing from my parents. That is why we kicked her out. But you said she was violent, a commenter noted. Now she is a thief? Which is it? And why did you need a donation fund if she was the one stealing? Brooke stared at the comments. She looked trapped. She looked like an animal caught in a snare, realizing that chewing off its own leg was the only option left. Just then, a notification popped up on the screen. It wasn't a call. It was a system alert from the broadcasting platform. Alert. We have detected a policy violation in your recent clips. Content removed. Brooke stared at it. What? She whispered. Then, another alert. This one from the third-party donation site she had linked in the chat. Alert. Your campaign, Parker Family Safety Fund, has been suspended due to unusual activity and reports of fraudulent solicitation. No. Brooke gasped. No, no, no. She clicked on the link. A 404 error page appeared on the shared screen. Fundraiser not found. The money was gone. The stream of cash she had been using to pay the Shadow Creek Capital interest, to buy her lip balm, to keep the illusion alive. It had been severed. Her face crumbled. It wasn't the pretty acting cry from Take 3. This was the ugly, contorted face of genuine ruin. You guys reported it. She spat at the camera. You reported the fund. It was a scam. The comments rolled by. You are a scammer. It wasn't a scam, she screamed. We needed that money. We need it. For security? Someone asked. For the loan, Brooke shrieked. For the loan, okay? Are you happy? We have to pay the loan. What loan? The home equity loan. Brooke was standing up now, pacing in the small frame of the camera. The loan Mom took out. The one I told her to take out. We have to pay it back or they are going to take the house. She stopped. The silence in the room was heavy. She had just confessed. She had admitted the loan existed. She had admitted she told Dana to take it out. And she had admitted the fundraising money was for the debt, not for security. Wait, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I didn't mean... So you framed your sister to pay off a loan? A user wrote, fraud. Another wrote, this is literal fraud. I donated $50. Someone typed, I am calling my bank. Brooke looked at the camera. Her eyes were wide, glassy, and terrified. She looked at the number of viewers. 4,000 people. 4,000 witnesses. She looked at her phone, where the comments were now scrolling so fast, they were a blur of accusations. I only used some of it, she stammered. I only used some of the money. Mom was the one who got scammed. It was Mom's fault. She lost the money on that investment group. I was just trying to fix it. She was throwing Dana under the bus. To save herself. She was exposing her mother's shame to the entire world. Mark called again. This time, Brooke didn't swipe it away. She stared at the name Dad flashing on the screen. She looked at the camera one last time. I hate you, she whispered. I didn't know if she was talking to me, or the internet, or herself. She reached out and ripped the power cord out of the ring light. The room went dark. Then the stream cut to black. Broadcast ended. I sat in my studio, the silence rushing back in to fill the space. My heart was pounding a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I looked at Lila on the video call. She had stopped typing. She took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Well, Lila said, that concludes the discovery phase. The fallout was immediate and nuclear, within an hour. The clips were everywhere. TikToks analyzing the Take 3 file name, Twitter threads dissecting the timeline of the loan admission. Repost accounts that had previously mocked me were now posting apologies and deep dives into Brooke's history of manipulation. Brooke Parker is a liar was trending. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt a profound, aching sadness. I watched the follower count on Brooke's account. It was dropping by the thousands every 10 minutes. She locked her account at 9:30, but it was too late. The internet never forgets. At 10 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Mark. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. Ellie, he said. His voice sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. Dad, I said. She is gone, he said. What? Brooke, she took the car. She took her computer. She left about 20 minutes ago. She said she couldn't stay here. I closed my eyes. She had run. Of course she had run. And Mom? I asked. She is in bed, Mark said. She won't speak. She just keeps crying. The neighbors. Mrs. Gable came over. She saw the live stream. Everyone saw it. Ellie. Everyone knows about the scam, about the loan, the shame. That was what they had feared the most. And in trying to avoid it, they had magnified it 1,000 times over. I am sorry, Mark whispered. I held the phone, listening to his breathing. It is over. Dad, I said, the lie is over. "What do we do now?" he asked. "The bank? The loan notices?" "I don't know." I said, "I honestly don't know." I hung up. I couldn't fix it for them. I couldn't write a check to Shadow Creek Capital. I couldn't delete the footage of Brooke screaming about Dana's investment scam. They had built a house of cards, and they had set it on fire to keep warm. Now, they had to live in the ash. The next morning, I met Lila at a coffee shop near her office. It was a bright, crisp autumn day. The world looked normal, which felt jarring. I put a folder on the table. "This is the rest of it," I said. "The bank statements showing the transfers to the fake company, the lip balm receipt, the proof that Brooke was intercepting the mail." Lila opened the folder and flipped through the pages. She nodded slowly. "You have enough to put her in prison." "Ellie," she said, "fraud, larceny, identity theft regarding the bank account. The solicitation of funds under false pretenses is wire fraud." She looked at me over the rim of her coffee cup. "And you have enough to sue your parents for the stolen savings. You could put a lien on the house, what is left of the equity. Anyway, you could force a sale." I looked out the window. I saw a young woman walking a dog. I saw a couple holding hands. "What happens if I sue?" I asked. "It drags on for years," Lila said. "It stays in the news. You become that girl who sued her family. You win, eventually, but you pay for it in time and stress. And if I don't?" Lila closed the folder. "If you don't?" Brooke walks away. She might get hit with fines from the fundraising platform. But without a criminal complaint from a victim, the DA might not pursue the other charges. She reinvents herself. She moves to a new city. She finds a new mark. And my parents? They lose the house, Lila said bluntly. "Foreclosure is inevitable given what you have told me about the debt. They end up in an apartment. They live on Social Security. They blame you for not saving them." "Reconciliation?" I asked, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Lila sighed. "Reconciliation is a trap. Ellie, they sacrificed you. They didn't just make a mistake. They made a choice. If you go back, you tell them that what they did was acceptable. You become the safety net again, and next time, they will drag you down with them." I sat there, the smell of roasted coffee beans filling the air. I had won. The truth was out. My name was cleared. Hawthorne Ridge had emailed me at 8 a.m., apologizing and reinstating my promotion track, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like survival. I picked up the folder. "I'm not going to sue my parents." I said, "They are already in their own personal prison. The neighborhood knows. Their friends know. They have to live with that." "And Brooke?" Lila asked. I looked at the evidence of the dissolved company, the fake tears, the stolen money. I thought about Sarah, the college friend Brooke had destroyed. I thought about the strangers who had donated money they probably needed. "File the complaint." I said. Lila nodded. "For the money she stole from you?" "No." I said. I paused. "For the fraud." "Send the evidence to the fundraising platform and the district attorney. I am not asking for restitution for myself. I am asking for her to be stopped." I stood up. "I am not her victim anymore," I said, "and I am not her audience." I walked out of the coffee shop. I walked down the street. My coat buttoned against the wind. I didn't know where I was going, exactly. I had a studio apartment with no furniture. I had a family that was a smoking crater. I had a lot of healing to do, but as I walked, I took my phone out of my pocket. I opened Instagram. I went to my settings. Deactivate account. I pressed the button. The screen went black, then refreshed to the login page. I put the phone in my pocket. I took a deep breath. The air was cold and clean. It was time to write a new story, one where I was the only author. Thank you so much for listening to Ellie's story. Writing this journey of betrayal, vindication, and the complex pain of family estrangement has been an intense experience, and I hope it resonated with you. I would love to hear your thoughts on the ending. Did Ellie make the right choice by walking away from her parents, but reporting Brooke? What would you have done in her position? Please leave a comment below, letting me know where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this series, please subscribe to Revenge Stories for more deeply realistic dramas about justice, resilience, and the human condition. Until next time, take care of yourselves.